very, very unusual night. Frank, Carol, our executive producers, all over for 50 years, and Frank and I are coming before we start show.
Yeah, John, this is probably one of the darkest days in the history of the United States when a gentleman that who is not preaching any hate or anything like that is out there and trying to make peace with people, and someone steps up and shoots him. So tonight's show is dedicated to Charlie Kirk. Um, it's unfathomable to me to think that a university, whenever you go to a position to see somebody, whether it's the president, vice president, or congressman, or anyone, there's always a yoke out front. There's always people there hired to frisk you and to run the wand on you. None of that happened here. I just can't believe that happened, that could ever happen. And as Roger pointed out, the university only has 5 police officers. This is totally unacceptable. The behavior of this gentleman, who, and we don't know what happened, but there was no reason for anybody to take anybody's life.
Yeah, the very, very latest news that I can pass along just before we came on the air was they do have a person of interest now, eventually, finally, someone that was all dressed in black. They're not giving any other information other than they do have a person of interest. He's dressed all in black, and they are pursuing from that area. And if anything more comes up and Frank gets it on the wire, we'll certainly pass along during the course of the show. But it's a very, very sad day for not only the city of Utah, but for the country as a whole, and for the entire family. This young man has very, very young children, and this is going to be a very, very difficult period of time. Roy Cummings is always in Tampa, Florida, and we always start out with Roy the first half hour. Roy, I thought the old bugaboo was going to come back, and yet the Bucks on Sunday afternoon, when they missed the chance to put the game away, and unfortunately the bugaboo jumped off one of the club and went to the other one, and they won the game anyway. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it really was. In fact, there were several kicks over the course of the weekend. So, it's kind of funny. First week of the season, the way the NFL schedule is now is 17 games. Fewer starters are playing in the preseason. So it's a bit of a grab bag, a guessing game as to what you're going to get from any position player in the NFL on the first week. And usually after 4 quarters, everybody kind of figures out, finds out kind of get their footing, I guess. You can see it with J.J. McCarthy, obviously, in the Monday night game. But, the Kickers had the problem. I mean, Roger can speak to the point that the Falcons kicker crew is he's as steady as there is, and the Bucs kickers done the same. It's something how 3 of those kicks went off the goalpost, and one banked in, and the other couple others banked off of it. So pretty wild, but that's football, and again, it's hard to know what to expect sometimes first week because we just haven't seen a lot of these guys, and they haven't seen the field themselves. So at least not in that kind of not in the heat of action. So an interesting game, but it's just I think the bigger picture is that clearly those are the 2 top teams in the division, and I think. Of course, it's going to be a battle between the 2 of them, and whoever comes out on top is going to probably be. It's going to be a result of something, very tight, close, game of inches type thing, and it could be a mistake point or a missed kick. So who knows?
Roy, how many years? Let's go back, say 7 or 8 years, and tracking the Bucs, and how many times they came down to a 4th period field goal that would have won the game for them and put them in a position to either get into the playoffs or have a much better record during the course of the regular season. And it seemed like every time it went the other way. And but boy, this Sunday it just all turned to the Bucs favored, and then they came away with a win.
Yeah, I'll say that. I mean, the Bucs history isn't really one where it's earmarked by, missed field goals costing them opportunities. Really, I mean, they've had a couple here and there. Every team has, but they've also had some of the better kickers in the game. Martin Gramatica, obviously, two others, and they, kicking has not really traditionally been a problem for the Bucs. They've had that. They've had that pretty slow enough part. But look, it happens, and it wasn't the only game that happened in this week. It won't be the only game that somebody misses a field goal or an extra point over the course of the season, and it proves costly. I mean, that's just how tight the games typically are, and so it's. But again, I just think it was a great example of just how close Tampa Bay and Atlanta are really in that division. And I think anybody who, and there's a tendency to kind of downplay the NFC South, and Tampa and Atlanta really aren't part of the NFC echelon. But you know what? After at the end of the day, I think they both are. To be honest, I think they're as good as the Washington Commanders. I think they're as good as I think quite as good as the Eagles, perhaps. But we'll see how it goes.
Well, I was going to go back to Roger Henry next because Mr. Freeman, he wanted to get off to a good start in Atlanta. He wanted to sort of change the complexion of the end of last year. He started this year in the NFC South, and again, it didn't work for him.
Well, it was a shame that they used attempt for the tying field goal didn't go through the uprights, but I just want to say one thing about the weekend. I felt that this, when we know that the starters don't play much, if at all, during preseason, I thought this was the best weekend I had seen in several years as far as performance goes by starting teams, the number ones. And like Roy was saying, and there were some exciting games. I will tell you, I went turned over and went to sleep on that Vikings game because when I saw, I think it was 16 points, and I figured it's over with. And then the next morning when I wake up to find out that they won, that was unbelievable. And I see why Josh Allen is the most valuable player in the league. He is unbelievable what he can do. And I heard one statistic, I believe it was three or four is the most games in the entire weekend that were not one-score games as far as the winning margin goes, which I think is really amazing for the first week of the season.
Yeah, Billy Wardell will join us in the next half hour. We'll chat a little bit about the Philadelphia Eagles as well, but the Eagles did make a little bit of a move. They had one running back who was really in the number 2 hole, and behind Bailey, and he got hurt in the second quarter. So they went out and made a trade, got themselves another running back, Roger.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, today I saw the quarterback rankings for the weekend, and they had Hurts number 3, well deserving, because without him in that game, I don't think they would have won.
And Roy, as we go up and down the line over the weekend, a lot of exciting games, but some were not really surprises. Rodgers had a pretty good game against the Jets, which I think surprised some people in New York. And the Giants, they struggled. They just couldn't find a winning column, so New York is in a drought again.
Yeah, it seems like look, I think it's going to be a lean year for both of the teams in New York yet again. Look, it's really about the quarterback, and I'm not sure that's settled in either spot really. I thought Fields played pretty well for the Jets, but the thing you got to remember about Aaron Rodgers is there's nothing wrong with the talent. I think he proved that last year. Even yes, obviously has clunkers of games. He's got more of those these days than he used to, obviously. But at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers can still play. It's really kind of a matter of, you want that element in your locker room because he's a little bit unpredictable. You just don't know from one week to the next day how Aaron Rodgers, what's he going to be focused on? Does he need a personal timeout? Does he need to go, sit in the dark room for a week and get himself mentally straightened out? Is he focused on something off the field? Is he focused on the field? And that's where I think the frustrations come in. Plus, he's obviously gotten to a point in his career where he believes he can demand certain things. In some cases, maybe he can. He certainly thought he could with the Jets. And, you have to question, is that the best thing for the organization going forward? And maybe it's not. And that's when you start to run into some trouble with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. As far as him being able to play, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be able to make some plays. That's, he's got that in him. And he's, one thing that most quarterbacks will tell you is they wish they knew what they know at 40 when they were 20, because if they did, they'd all look like Hall of Famers.
Mm-hmm.
But, they can quickly go to the line and diagnose everything in a hurry. And then it's just a matter of executing the play. And, again, if they're not battling some kind of an injury, most of them can execute pretty well, too. So, as long as he stays healthy, I think he could end up, surprising some people and get the Steelers, a reason to believe that they can get maybe get to the playoffs this year. As for the Jets, it's still it's a work in progress, and it's a work in progress with the Giants as well. It's going to continue to be that way, I think, for the next year or two until they really, again, you hate to say it because it's that simple, but it is. I mean, until you solve the quarterback situation, it's hard to build the rest of the team because you've got to get that part fixed first. And, if you don't, you tend to struggle a little bit.
Roger, I don't want to focus on the Eagles too much. As I said, Billy's going to be with us the next half hour. And, of course, Bill has lived and died with the Philadelphia Eagles for over 50 years, broadcasting with the team, being a part of the team for so many years and being an outstanding sportscaster in Philadelphia. And he's going to join us to talk about the Eagles. But interesting game on Thursday night to get the season started. Roger, on a dominant win by the Eagles, we had at the same time they had the game in hand for most of the first half.
Well, yeah, they did, and like I said, Hurts was the main contributor on the ground and just managing that game. But my thought is, and like your opinion, if the Cowboys had Michael Parsons, would the score is different? A lot of speculation about that. If that was the case, but that's what, where, why, when, I wish I knew. That's about it, because he's not a part of the team anymore. And a lot of speculation, if Phil can really expound on this, a lot of speculation about what Howie Rosen was offering to the Cowboys for Mike Parsons, and more than the Green Bay Packers did. But we'll wait and talk to Billy about that. But I have a question for Roy. What was your opinion of the Bears in the game the other night, Roy? I thought they played well, and I was just surprised that Minnesota was able to come back and win.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't surprised that Minnesota came back and won, because the Bears kind of faltered, obviously. I mean, they kind of set things up for the Vikings there. But J.J. McCarthy, obviously he really struggled the first 3 quarters and just looked almost out of place. But by the fourth quarter, sometimes it just takes one pass, one completion for a quarterback to kind of get his footing and find his confidence. And I think that's what happened with J.J. McCarthy. And they just seemed like a team that it was just a different team in the fourth quarter. That's the thing about the NFL. Football overall really is, you can kind of be away for 3 quarters sometimes, and if you're still in it, if you get 23 possessions, and you take full advantage of them. Well, you know what? You can win a game. So, I thought the Bears looked really good early on. Obviously, I thought, they looked better than I thought they were, and it kind of surprised me as the game went on. Their quarterback, seemed to struggle more, as well as McCarthy on his confidence. And early on, it was just like the Bears were kind of dominant, and things were going great, but then they just couldn't maintain it. And that's kind of the story there. Since this group has been together in Chicago, is the quarterback just tends to goes through these stretches, and they tend to be somewhat lengthy, where he really struggles to find open receivers, hit open receivers. They got a little pressure on him. They finally got the pass rush going like he did late in the game, and that made it be good. So we don't forget, didn't have a quarter. I don't think they had a sack in the first 3 quarters. One until the fourth quarter, where the Vikings finally came alive. The thing is, a lot of people think the Bears could compete in that division this year. I mean, the Lions, looking at them, the other day, they look like they're going to struggle this year. I don't know how long it goes on, but that did not look like a good Lions team, and kind of looked like the Lions of old, as opposed to the team that we've seen over the last couple of years. And if that continues to be the case, if that pattern continues, well, the Bears are going to believe they have a chance to compete for the division title here, and you can't afford to lose games that you lead late, like they did against the Vikings. But the Vikings could change all that. So, Caleb Williams, I thought, looked good early, looked dominant early. He looked as good as I've seen him. But then he kind of fell back into some old habits. And, look, again, talk about works in progress. We said that about the Jets, said that about the Giants. It's really the same with the Bears. New coach. I think Caleb Williams is probably being coached up better now than he has. But still, there's a lot of work to be done there, and he's got some habits that have to be broken, and he's got some technique he's got to develop better. So we'll see how it goes. But overall, I think there was something to build on for the Bears. More to build on for the Vikings. Obviously, you hang in there. You don't play your best football for 3 quarters. But still, I can win when the quarterback's taking control of the game. That's a big confidence booster for that team. But there were some things to build on there.
Well, I got to agree with you. I was a little surprised at Detroit. I thought they played a little bit better. They had such a great year last year. Got out of the year in such a good shape. But one thing that proves to me over the weekend is that every weekend, why I never bet on football, and that is go to Buffalo. If you get down there, you would have picked Buffalo to beat the Ravens in that Sunday night game. I don't know. Something's wrong with me, because I'll tell you, I give that guy, that coach, and I'm all for Roger. We're big enthusiasts of this, because we've been with the Eagles for a long time. And what a job he's done in Buffalo. And he's a Marvel Levy reinvented. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, he is. And he's just a class act. Grew up in Philly, went to LaSalle High School, and then was Mike Tomlin's roommate at William and Mary. And we're going to talk about this with Mike later on tonight. His brother, who used to be with the Eagles in their marketing, he's president of the union. And but Sean McDermott is just a wonderful person, a wonderful coach. But he's got a great quarterback, I have to tell you. But I just wanted to say one thing on baseball. The Phillies are up to the Mets 2-0. Amazing when the Phillies play at home and not City Field. It's a different ball game, literally.
Well, you jumped ahead of me. I was going to go to baseball next, because the thing that I wanted to touch on, and this is one of them, you said the Phils now lead by a score of 2-0, and they've just been playing dynamite baseball. But let's talk about the teams that are supposed to have been in it. And, the Braves got another really big break today But Hershey catcher, he's going to be lost for 4 months. But they were out of it in the middle of the season, as far as I was concerned, anyway. But the Mets died. The Phillies came on like gangbusters, going to walk away with the East. Roy, the same thing. Chicago got out back and forth, but they couldn't maintain.
Yeah, well, you know, that's why they play 162 games. Every team goes through stretches where they can't seem to lose. They go through stretches where they can't seem to win, and you know, it's kind of the nature of the game. Look, there's some surprises about the Braves. I think it's one of them, obviously. You know, we don't, but and the Cubs. Look, I don't think anybody expects the Cubs to really be, you know, at the top of the division this year to begin with. If they can get to the playoffs and maybe win a round or two, they'll consider it a good season. I don't think a lot of people thought the Brewers would do what they're doing.
No,
not after the way the team was dismantled. It seems, but look, it's an organization that just figures out ways to win. I think again, to me, that's what makes baseball great. Is look. I don't think no one expected the Tigers to do what they've done this year. No one expected the Brewers to do what they've done. Not a lot of people thought the Blue Jays would do what they've done. We just had a lot of great surprises, in my opinion. And look, San Diego still got a chance of winning the West over the Dodgers. So the great thing about baseball is that it's quite unpredictable. I mean, it really is. I'm not. It's just every team really, has a chance. Some teams that you think will be better than others tend to falter. A lot of it has to do with injuries, what kind of pitching you're getting, what kind of defense you get, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's seldom, if ever, disappoints. There's always surprises that excite you, and there's always disappointments that you make you shake your head.
Hey, Don.
That's the surprise of the Yankees, because they've been very, very poor defensively at times during the course of the season. They still have, in my view, a slight edge going into the last 8 or 9 games of the season. Now, the next 4, they're going to play the Red Sox next, but they got the White Sox, they got Baltimore, they got the bottom of the barrel going to the end of the season against Toronto and against Boston. So I think that's going to be a factor as we look at the last week, maybe the last 10 days of the season, to really help the New York Yankees, because they're not a very good team consistently either, Roger.
Hey, Don, can I just say something? While we're still in baseball, I think we've been remiss over the last 4 months. Our Tampa Guru had mentioned 5 months ago that in the next decade that the Rays will be playing in the Tampa Bay area. Well, that's proved out to be 100% pure. John Morgan, who was the leading billionaire on the Dreamers, that was also Pat's group over in Orlando, has now backed out. So they're done. And the Hillsborough County Community College, as well as a spot down in Ybor City, are the two. It looks like it's going to go to Hillsborough Community College, because it's right there on Del Mabry. But Roy picked it out. Today, the new ownership was meeting with the the NBL executive committee, and then they're going to meet with the owners later on this week. But Roy picked it out. He said, "Yep, say all you want, but it's going to be here." So I think we really need to make sure that everybody knows that Roy had picked this out 6 months ago.
Well, that's nice of you to say, Frank. I appreciate it. Look, it's really common sense. As I said, I think Major League Baseball, before it gets up on the Tampa Bay market, wants to see this team in Tampa. And if Stuart Sternberg wasn't going to develop the wherewithal, to do that, build a stadium in Tampa, they were going to go look for other ownership, and that's what's happened. They found other owners, and those owners, they toyed with the idea of Orlando. They're going to try to put the team where they think it's going to work best. But at the end of the day, It looks like, I mean, there's a real push now to get this team to build a stadium in Tampa. The Hillsborough Community College site is a really good site because it's right across the street from Raymond James Stadium. There's plenty of room. I mean, there's an entire, there's half a mile of land there that they can use to develop, and turn it into a really a great destination spot. And obviously the Yankees will have to be, compensated in some way for losing their spring training home. But there's a chance they can still do that on the other side of the street, believe it or not. There's enough land there on what is the main drive in Tampa, Dale Mabry Highway, which is just incredible that there's this stretch of land that is basically unincorporated. And there's a massive mall right behind it. So it makes an awful lot of sense to put it where they're talking about at Hillsborough Community College. And the city's behind it as well. It's state land, so that's good. A lot of things working in favor of that happening. But, hey, nothing's done until it's done. And I'm sure there'll be probably some pushing and shoving on either side going either way. But, hopefully it does finally work out and the Rays can stay here in Tampa and build a stadium that, is worthy of the fans going to and enjoying a game. Because, again, I think I think the team can thrive here, but it's not going to happen unless it's in Tampa.
Frank, let's take it one step further. Where are they going to play this year and in 25?
Well,
26.
The new roof should be on by December, and then the new field will be in by April. So it's going to be very tight. But they're going to play back at the stadium, at the Tropicana Field, when everything is complete. Now, there's a million things that you got to get done. All the electronics have to be replaced. The whole field has to be replaced. The roof has to be replaced. Everything seems to be on time, but we haven't had a hurricane lately. So that could stop it right then and there. But they are doing a good job on the roof, getting it up and getting it on. And again, the reason I brought this thing up was that one of the reasons we've been so successful worldwide is that Roy has made a tremendous interest builder every time we have him on, and I want to make sure that people knew that he was the one that said 6 months ago this is going to happen, and it's happening.
Well, all we can do is hope that the team stays in the area, and the other thing is that all we can hope that once they get there is that they get the new stadium built the way they want it, at the size they want it, with the conveniences of parking and getting in and out of the stadium and all the things necessary, because I still think it's a little bit of a gamble when you talk about the age bracket you're using during June, July, and August. Baseball's tremendous in spring training because people go in the daytime. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's very, very difficult for a lot of people to come. Like we were down in Sarasota for such a great number of years, Frank, and Roger's been all over Florida. I mean, the older people just don't travel a lot. So I'm just hopeful that the fact that they're in Tampa and they have location and if they have public transportation and if they have all the things they need, I hope it flies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it will. Again, they'll build a stadium that has a retractable roof so that they can play some outdoor games when the weather's, when it's worthy. I mean, you think about it. Look, you guys know it. You've all been in Florida. You know what it's like here. You can play outdoor games all the way.
You're calling. I like you, Frank.
Go ahead.
You got me?
Yes, sir.
Stadium. It's got to be a state-of-the-art facility, and this group can do it. And so we'll see. Again, still a lot of steps to be taken, but it appears as though the biggest step was getting unfortunately getting Stuart Sternberg out of the owner's chair, and he's still part of the team. He's still part of the group, but he's a minority holder now, and so he shouldn't be holding back the effort anymore.
Roger, we talked all season about the National League East and the Phillies and the Braves and the Mets and all. And all of a sudden, the New York Mets have died. The Phillies have done what Bill Wardell told me 3 weeks ago. He said, with the pitching staff that the Phillies have lined up right now, the way the rest of the National League East is running, the Phillies are going to win the National League East by a minimum of 7 to 9 games. And I agree with them. I mean, everything they're doing right now is as good as you can do.
Well, absolutely. The only thing I'm concerned about is that Trey Turner and Alec Bone are on the 10-day IL. And hopefully it's only 10 days and they come back, because last year when Turner was out, he had a lot of trouble getting back in sync like he has. And, it is amazing. I think he's hitting 301 or 304 or something like that. And, you talk about the days, and this has been on radio a lot, that we're used to 30, 40. Winning batting titles, and it's just amazing how things have changed. But you're right. I am concerned because the Phillies have a very tough end of the year period. They have to go to San Diego. They have to go to Los Angeles. They're going to be fighting to win that NL West, and I think it'll be a real telling tale for the Phillies. But if they get that big lead like they have now, 9 games over the Mets, they should be in good shape. I was just, interested in what you fellows were talking about in Tampa. I haven't been there in a number of years, but there was a time I was there quite often, and in the Raymond James Stadium, the Super Bowl and everything else. But, I always remember Dale Mabry and that whole area of being very open. And I guess it's still open today. I would have thought there would have been a lot of growth and building along there over the many years since I've been there. That surprised me.
It hasn't changed much, Roger. It really hasn't. I mean, again, as I said, there's almost a half-mile stretch on Dale Mabry, basically the land that it's from Columbus Avenue down to Martin Luther King, and it's a long stretch, and it's all parking lots for the Bucks for Raymond James Stadium on one side, and it's just unincorporated land on the other side, owned by the state, and it's part of Hillsborough Community College, and the only thing that really is new there is the Yankees spring training facility, or their spring training stadium, Steinbrenner Field. And I think and I've said this before as well, I think what makes the most sense is you just use that as the basic footprint for the new stadium for the Rays to play in. And then you can develop all the land that's south of that for the entertainment stuff, restaurants and, the things that are going to be critical to the owners. Basically, they put money off that whole land. And, it's what, most cities do now with their sports facilities. They try to build around them. And there's got to be things that, attract the casual fan. There's got to be restaurants, shops, the whole bit, so that it becomes a destination for everybody. And hopefully, a percentage of those people stumble into the ballpark this night. So, and I think again, that's the thought process, and that's we'll see if they can get there. But chances of them getting there much better now than they were 6 months ago.
Well, fellas, we're just about out of time in this segment. We'll see you again, Roy. The first half hour was very, very interesting. And as we continue, I want to get into the Dodgers and the Padres because I think that's going to really be very interesting the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. Maybe one of the biggest disappointments overall is the Dodger play. I mean, everybody expected the Dodgers to walk away with everything. It's not happening. But Roy, thank you very, very much. We're out of time this segment. Billy Wardell will be joining us in just a moment from Philadelphia.
He's here. He's here.
Oh, Billy's here, Don.
Billy is not told me we had to take a pause for a commercial, but
No,
Billy's
sir.
ready to go.
Yes, sir.
I'm always ready to go, Don Henderson and Roger Henler. I'm always ready to rock and roll.
Everything is going strong, and I even gave you a compliment earlier in the program saying when you and I chatted 2 weeks ago, you said the Phillies are going to win the National League East by a minimum of 7 and maybe 10. And that's exactly what's going to happen, Billy.
Well, Don, I was not really sold on the Mets. I mean, the Mets have a lot of holes on their team. I mean, you look, they have high-priced players like Lindor and Soto and Alonso, but they're really not a great baseball team. They have a lot of injuries to their pitching staff. Of course, the Phillies have been hit with some injuries, too. Zach Wheeler, Trey Turner. We know Wheeler's not going to pitch the rest of the year. We don't know about Turner. You've got to be very, very careful with a hamstring. Hopefully he'll be able to go in the postseason, but I'm not overly optimistic that he'll be ready to go the first series. I mean, they're going to be very cautious with him because he's such an integral part of that Phillies lineup.
Billy Wardell, one of the interesting parts of Philadelphia sports for so many years now, and we've been together talking sports for a lot of years. And Billy, this is one more, and what we can say is that we'll keep it going. You've been with the Eagles, you've been with the Phillies, you've been with the Sixers, you've had your own show. And before we start, I always let you do it at the end. At the beginning today, give us your opening of your show in Philadelphia, and how you kick it off every day.
You're listening to WCHE 95.3 on the FM dial, WCHE 1520 on the AM dial, 95.3 WCHE.com, streaming worldwide, and you always can follow me on X, the Wardell, WERNDL.
Roger, you're up.
Well, Bill, I agree with you. And then Alec Bone, as I mentioned earlier, on the 10-day IL, and he's really helped this team. But I'll tell you, the surprises to me are that, like Otto Kemp, when he's come up and he's back up, and, I'm not saying a great player or anything, but he has helped the team, and he's produced them. And they've been – go ahead.
Look. When you're called up from the minor leagues and you're on the big league, you're either going to step it up or step it down. And Otto has done a good job. I mean, it's not easy to come into this clubhouse, and because expectations are so high in Philadelphia. It's World Series or bust this year, guys. Let's make no mistake about it. Because if they don't get to the World Series and win the World Series, what does Dave Dombrowski and John Middleton do with this franchise? Do they break it up? You have impending free agents like Ranger Suarez. You have the biggest is Kyle Schwarber and the catcher JT Realmuto. So you have some very, very difficult decisions facing you going forward. So they have to be in the World Series. And I think they have to win the World Series this year.
I agree.
Well, if you've hit 50 home runs and he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year, that's going to be very interesting to see at his age how they judge whether Dombrowski judges it one way or whether he judges it another way. But
the one thing about signing Schwarber, you have to be very, very careful. You may have to overpay the first couple of years. Because I don't think you want to go 4 or 5 years. He'll be 37, 38 years old.
Right.
And you cannot count on a player at that age producing on a real high level. So I think the Phillies will probably have to say, okay, we've got to overpay him in a 3-year contract where he's going to make X amount of dollars, 45 to 50 million a year. And that they're going to have to make that decision. Between 40 and 50 million is the asking price. And remember, now he's a free agent. There's other clubs out there that will overpay. Did you ever think Soto would get $745 million?
No.
All right. So
That's the deal. There's a club do out there that say, the hell with it, we'll get whatever he wants. If he wants a 10-year deal, look at the man. But that's what they're faced with.
Roger?
Yeah, I agree, Bill. And I've said that he's from Ohio, and I think the Reds are definitely in the running to get his services because
So
that could.
And I mean, they could overpay. Now, he loves his clubhouse. He loves the city, the whole deal. But it all comes down to MONEY. Who's going to put the most money on the table? It's like Don Henderson.
That's right.
Looking for any place he goes.
Billy, I'll tell you, you're the best. Well, let me just say this, that you've been associated with the National Football League, with the Philadelphia Eagles, with the broadcast of the Eagle games for, 40 years now. And I want to go back to opening night, opening the season on Thursday night. First of all, your evaluation of a 3-point win against Dallas, what you thought about Dallas coming in, what you thought about Dallas after they left, and what you think about the Eagles going into Game 2 and marching forward.
Well, let me say one thing. It was a stupid move by Jalen Carter to spit at Dak Prescott.
Oh.
Now, I'm going to go a step further. He got nailed for one game check, $57,000. Why wasn't Dak Prescott assessed some type of fine? He precipitated the problem. He didn't tell me what he wants. He was spitting on the ground. Look, he was trying to incite Jalen Carter or an Eagle player, and Carter played right into his hand. And I thought the official should have thrown the flag. They should have warned Carter and also Dak Prescott. This will not be tolerated. You took one of the best players out of the game before it even started. And I'm really disappointed with the National Football League because, again, Dak Prescott, and I'm not a homer by any stretch of the imagination, Dak Prescott should also been levied a fine.
Yeah, he really criticized the league to say they shouldn't have suspended him. All they should have done was fine him that $57,000 and let go with that. I couldn't believe that. I can't believe the players would even say something like that. But Roger is another stone to throw against the Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, that's why he was drafted down 6-7 head down, was because of all the trouble he caused in college, and now he's in the pros. He spits on a guy.
Yeah, well, I think Mike Sealski had the column today. I think it was him that said that this is one thing you have to be worried about if you're management with the Eagles and Nick Sirianni, that you don't know whether this guy will do something that will hurt the team. They were very fortunate. They won. I had asked the question earlier, Bill, if Micah Parsons was on the Cowboys, would that have changed the game and the score?
I don't know. He missed a lot of training camp, and he played pretty well in that first game with Green Bay. I don't think so. I think the Eagles are a better team than the Cowboys. I think they have problems getting to the quarterback. I mean, if Carter's out there, he puts a lot of pressure on the opposing team's offensive line. But you mentioned Jalen Carter. Look, he's a very immature kid when he did something like that. But he plays for the ferocity of a wild bull. I mean, he gets out there and there's nobody in the NFL that can block him one-on-one. And he is a special talent. Yeah, you don't like him to get baited into a situation like he did the other night. But he is a very, very special talent. Yes, he drafted the 9th pick in the draft. The 8 players who were picked before him better be all Hall of Famers because every club that passed on him made a big mistake. Guys have made mistakes over the years. And clubs will say, well, that's character issue and all that. I mean, look at Warren Sapp. He was smoking the wacky tobacco. He went from the top 5 pick to the 12th pick in the draft. We can look at a number of players over the years. Randy Moss, why did he drop so far? Mm-hmm. He went 21st overall. One of the outstanding wide receivers. So sometimes we get a little carried away with character. I I'm not justifying in any shape or form that what he did was right. It was absolutely stupid. It was absolutely wrong. But he is a talent beyond talent.
I agree.
Well, I would agree with you there, but sometimes talent gets you killed. And boy, oh boy, just hope that he doesn't embarrass the team in the league before it's all over. Billy,
I don't think he will, Don. I think he's learned the lesson, and as he did in the draft, he learned his lessons. But again, when Prescott spit, he said he was spitting on the ground. He precipitated this whole problem.
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
Just hopefully Mahomes won't try to sucker him in doing something on Sunday.
I didn't hear that.
I know. There's some speculation that Patrick Mahomes will try to sucker the Carter into something on Sunday to cause a problem, and hopefully Carter is just he knows now better, like most says, that he's learned his lesson.
Every team is going to try to do that. Every team's going to fade him. Not only Kansas City, but the Rams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You have a litany of teams. They'll try to fade him. But now he learned his lesson. He's such a valuable force on the defensive line. He can't do that. He has to walk away from it. And I think he learned his lesson, and I think he will not be trapped by the opposing team. They'll beat him, but he's got to just turn his back on it.
Billy, I don't think that the league has been more dependent on quarterbacks than it is right now. It's always been the number one position. It's always the one you have to have in order to be a consistent winner in the National Football League. And, we look at what's happened in the last couple of weeks. The Eagles got off to start winning by 3. How about Washington, D.C.? What do you think about the young man down there, quarterback? He seemed to get out of the gate. He didn't come up with a sophomore jinx in game number 1.
Well, I certainly think Washington's a very talented team. And Jaden Daniels is a hell of a talent. He is a hell of a talent. And again, it proves that a guy like Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix playing more than 1 year in college football is so important. Bill Parcells had an old saying, I'm not going to touch a quarterback unless he plays close to 30 games in college. Many of these guys who come out with only 10, 12, 14 starts in their college career, buyer beware. And Jaden Daniels had a lot of time in college, refined his skills, much like some other players, Bo Nix in particular. He played 63 games in college.
Right.
63 games. So he was ready for the National Football League. So
Jalen Hurts, Bill.
Jalen Hurts, the more games you can play on the collegiate level. Now, the other thing, it's all changing now because quarterbacks in college, when they get a nice little stipend to stay in college, maybe staying in college a lot longer.
Billy, would you have believed we saw a game the other night where both teams almost ran up 500 yards? I mean, Baltimore had 490 something, and of course Buffalo winning the game at the wire, and they're at 496. I mean, almost 1,000 yards on both sides of the ball.
I'm glad you brought up the Baltimore Buffalo game. I thought when Baltimore got that ball late in the game, you had one of the most dynamic running quarterbacks and a dual-purpose threat. He can throw the ball, he can run the ball.
Right.
Why are they running every time with Derrick Henry? Yeah, he doesn't fumble very often. It's unusual. But why wouldn't, at least along those downs, you fake it to Henry and let Jackson take off? Because they were there to stop Henry. And I thought the play calling by the Ravens was subpar, to be honest with you.
I would agree with that. And the other thing is that even early on in the game, when Baltimore seemed to be in control, Jackson has difficulties. They have a way of finding a way to get him around, to get him moves around, and do different things with him. So his consistency just isn't there. Roger, do you saw the game as well, and we talked about the way he started playoff games and way that it came right back to first game of the season. You're Buffalo. You think Buffalo was really a better team, but they're not. They didn't win.
Yeah, they didn't, and Bill's right. Look at early in the game when they looked like he was going to get sacked for a big loss, and he picks up 50 yards, I believe, or more. I mean, you're right, Bill, and I agree with you totally that they should have utilized him and fake the Henry. And the other thing is, I'm sick and tired when it's like at the 2-3 yard line to go right up the middle. Why you can't have a rollout and then have the trailer and then pitch it as you're being hit so he goes into the goal line? I don't understand why.
Well, a lot of times at goal line they try to play mono against mono, and it doesn't work a lot of times. I think there has to be a little bit more creativity down near the goal line because the defense is really trying to get underneath the offensive line to stop guys. And I agree with you. I like to see more creativity down around the 2 and 3 yard line. They think they can just power people. I mean, it's like the push. I mean, yes, it's very, very effective with the Eagles, but I like to see them have a variation off the push, where they fake it and let a tight end or a running back go out the flat and catch the ball.
Exactly.
I like to see a little diversity as far as when you're using a tush push is concerned.
Billy, I would agree 100% on that. And I'll be honest with you. The first tush push, I don't think they made it first. I mean, they tell me about all where they play the ball and all this new equipment that they have today, exactly where the ball's supposed to go down and all that. The second time, I think they made it very easily. They got into the end zone. But the first tush push, I didn't think they made it at all. And, of course, remember they had the big discussion in the offseason as to whether they were going to try to eliminate that to some degree. So they're thinking in some ways the same way you're thinking, Bill, a little more diversification.
Well, the thing, again, there's teams in the league can't figure out a way to stop it. Give me a break. We have all these geniuses in the National Football League. They should be able to figure out the defensive ploy to insert against the Eagles on the tush push, and nobody's ever come up with a good, solid way to do it. I mean, Washington tried to do it in the playoff, and the guy got called twice for being offside, and they said the third time we'll move it into the end zone. But I mean, these teams, you'd think, with all the time they spend in the film room or the tape room now, that they would be able to devise a defense to stop the tush push to a certain extent.
Roger?
Well, and they've tried, and nobody can stop it.
Why not, Roger?
I don't know.
We're not launching a rocket ship here.
Yeah, I know. I don't. They can't stop it, and they can't run it themselves. Each team has tried it. I do not know, Bill. I think.
Well, the thing is, Jalen Hurts is a special quarterback. He's extremely strong in the lower body, and I understand not many people are as strong as him. But you just look at this team and say to yourself, why can't other teams? Josh Allen's a big man. Lamar Jackson is very, very, very wiry.
Right.
I don't understand it. Why teams can't stop the tush push. But again, that's for these people that try to come off as really reinventing football.
Jeff Stoutland, Bill. Jeff Stoutland.
Well, he does a heck of a job with his offensive line. I understand that. But again, we have people around the league that have divided defenses. They can't stop this offense. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Billy, any particular surprises? And now we talked about a lot in the last half hour, too, just before you came on, because not many of the veteran players play in the preseason. They wait till the season gets underway. Anything that really surprised you the first week of the season?
Well, the way that Indianapolis just hammered the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins head coach is in a lot of trouble. And the Giants are just a woeful, inept football team. I mean, they haven't scored a touchdown in the opener in the last 3 years. You go back to 1940 to 42 with the Detroit Lions, the last time it happened. I mean, the Giants are just a train wreck, to be honest with you.
And that coach is in trouble.
And the general manager should be in trouble as well.
Yeah, but unfortunately, they gave them all. They gave them all another year. Everybody thought it was going to be all over the end of last year because they just couldn't get out of the mud. And they're starting off the same way this year with no improvement. I mean, there's just whatever the communication is in the system and the coaches that they're using, and it's just not working, Billy.
No, it's not done. And the other thing is, Jackson Dart has got to be your starting quarterback. I would start him not this week, but next week. Russell Wilson is at the end of the line, all right? He's done, all right? You saw it in Pittsburgh last year at the end of the season. He was showing the time, showing the sands of time had caught up to them.
But they just gave another vote of confidence for this week, Billy. They didn't even say, well, maybe we're going to make a change in quarterback or maybe we're going to do something. They gave them a vote of confidence.
They're just spinning their wheels right now, the Giants. The Giants could end up as the worst team in the NFL this year, just based on that one performance. And look, Washington's a good team, but you've got to be able to score a touchdown. Come on.
Roger?
Well, there's no doubt about that. But what do you think? The surprise, I'm with you as far as Detroit goes, but I'm thinking it's only one game, and Dan Campbell is a motivator. He always has been, and I think that he'll turn it around.
I think so, too. He has a very good team there. Green Bay is hotter than a firecracker. And they've got some young talent. They've got some good young wide receivers. They made them bold move to get Micah Parsons. I think Green Bay is a team to be reckoned with. I think Green Bay and the Eagles could face the NFC Championship game. But I agree with you. Detroit looked a little sluggish. I think that this is a club that, with Jared Goff, and they have the two running backs. They got some excellent wide receivers. They have a good defense. So we'll see what happens. But I'm not giving up on Detroit right now, as I did with the Giants.
The other thing, Billy Goff has one of those. He's just one of those players that every once in a while has some real good games, 2, 3, 4 in a row, but then throws in a few clinkers, and that's always a question mark when you're going up against them. You got to think, hey, is this guy going to play his game or is he going to play our game?
You're right about that, Don. 100%. I mean, again, there's some teams that react like the Dow Jones Industrials. They look fabulous for 2 or 3 games, and then they go in the tank for a game or two. And then that's what I like about Sirianni and the Eagles. They've been a pretty consistent team, with the exception of 2 years ago when the roof caved in. Right. With all those changes and all the defensive coordinators, everything. I mean, that was a debacle, to be honest with you.
Well, Patricia, offensive coordinator, Bill.
Pardon me, Roger?
I said Matt Patricia, that when you were talking about a couple years ago.
He's now the Ohio State defensive coordinator.
Yeah, but defense, not offense, like they had him with the Eagles for that short period of time.
Well, he was the defensive coordinator with the Eagles after they got rid of that young man. I can't think of his name in the middle of the season. And Patricia couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. But now he's on the collegiate level.
Yeah, but there's a number of them from the NFL that are at the collegiate level now. Amazing.
Please, Mike, answer this phone.
Hey, Frank.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Can't complain. It was a great weekend for football, and everybody seems to be very happy.
Yeah, it's an exciting weekend for sure.
Yes, sir.
As they all are now.
Yes, sir. I just have one question. Since John Morgan backed out of the Atlanta Dreamers or Orlando Dreamers, will you be the millionaire that's going to go into there?
Back down to which place?
The Atlanta Orlando Dreamers to bring the trying to bring the Rays to Orlando.
Oh my gosh, no! Oh my gosh, it's not going to Orlando. Tampa.
Yeah, it's going to stay right across the street from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would somewhere in there.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to put your mic live.
Okay.
And no matter what happens on Saturday, Casey Keeley will right the ship at Temple University.
Well, I certainly wish him the best of luck. When the new president came in at the beginning of, the end of spring.
I thought you were the president.
Yeah. And I really thought he was going to have a very difficult time making that decision as whether he was going to maintain football or whether he was going to drop down to Division I AA or what he was going to do because of the difficulty that town was at over the last 25 or 30 years. But you're right. I mean, out of the dark, it happened for him before the coaches now in Nebraska came in, and he had a couple of great years. It took him to the playoffs.
Al had some good years. Al Golden, because Billy Bradshaw hired Al Golden, he got the ball rolling, and they brought in Matt Rule. He kept it going, and then after those guys left, the floor fell apart. The floor came out from under them.
That's right.
Beat teams, Division III teams. That's how bad they were. Right.
Well, Billy, I want to thank you so much for your time. As always, it's a lot of fun to talk, not only just baseball, football, we touch on everything. I don't even mention the NBA right now. I'll have to wait and see whether it even gets started. If the league even gets started, I don't know what Silver's doing, but
he doesn't do anything, Don. Let me tell you something. He's a commissioner that's just an empty suit, to be honest with you.
That's right.
Look at this whole thing with money under the table with Kawhi Leonard. Well, but he's not going to do anything. He'll investigate if we didn't find anything illegal. You know that. Come on. It's the NBA, but, the NBA has people spending hundreds of dollars for courtside tickets, thousands of dollars.
And all he's worried about is getting more teams, foreign teams. He wants to get more teams in Europe.
That's great. That's great. Don and Roger always enjoy it.
Always great, Bill. You're the best.
Okay, take care, partner. Thank you so much to talk to you soon. Have a great week, Bill.
You too. Bye-bye.
Don, Mr. Schultze is waiting in the end.
Okay, Mike Schultze is waiting. Well, we tried to switch over to the college football and so Mike come on with Billy for a couple of minutes. We talked about Temple, but more importantly, we were going to talk to Doug Miles too earlier tonight, but he had another assignment he had to go to. But the University of South Florida, Mike Schultze, and we talk about the ReliaQuest Bowl, and Mike's been with it for over 30 years now, and he keeps looking at those teams that are going to come in on New Year's Eve night and play. And Mike, first of all, welcome again to the show. And number two, you said it 2 weeks ago. Well, if the University of South Florida can win one game out of three, that'll be great. If they can win 2 games out of three, that would be greater. And if they can beat Miami this week, that would be sensational.
Yeah, well, it sure would, right? I mean, they've already surpassed all expectations. I know, and I'm a USF alum. And I can say honestly, looking at their schedule, I was like, wow, they could start out 0-3. That's gonna be a tough way for any team to start the year, with that schedule. And they won the first one. And I was like, well, thank goodness. At least at the very worst they'll be is 1-2, and of course now the very worst they'll be is 2-1. And the great news from at least my opinion, is that they're expected already to compete well with their conference that they're in, with their conference schedule. So, again, if they can finish even 2-1, then going into their conference schedule, they could win 8 more games this year. After Miami, regardless of what happens with Miami. So So they're really on a nice track. Hopefully they'll stay healthy this year, and if so, they have a chance to have a really, really banner year now. I'll tell you what, they're going to give Miami all they can handle, I think, or at least they're going to give them as much as they have in the tank. And, of course, Miami, they're not going to sneak up on Miami, especially at this point. So, but I thought about that against Florida too, and they still took care of business. They had a heck of a good game and a heck of a defense against the Gators. So, now who knows what's going to happen Saturday.
I think, to be honest with you, that the first game, their defense just completely surprised me to the extent of how much they dominated the game. And then, of course, last weekend, they got to go to the wire before they kick a field goal to win it. But they did win it, and that's what it's all about. Win W's. If you get W's, they win.
Well, and on the road, right. Playing in the swamp is not no picnic, guys. So, that's and especially like I said, they weren't going to surprise them because after the Boise State win, I expected Florida's going to be ready for them. They're not going to just think that they're going to come in and walk over them, and they still made a heck of a game of it, and we're there at the end. So good for them, and that's the fun part. You never know what's going to happen until they actually play the games.
Well, I'll tell you, the first weekend of college football was nothing short of sensational with all the great games last weekend, and even this weekend. Notre Dame will be a good game this weekend, I guess. But Roger, you're up.
Well, I think this past weekend, it's not one of my favorite weekends because these major teams are playing much lesser competition.
Garbage.
And garbage is right. And it's amazing when the Georgia game, it was tighter than anyone that I know of thought it was going to be, against Marshall. And they played. I forget. It's even a lesser team. Marshall was the first game, but it's just sad, Mike. That you said things are going to get better because they're going to have to play 9 games in the conference in the future, and they'll probably be playing less of these lower level teams. Am I right about that?
Well, the example you're using with the SEC, the SEC actually has, they're going to play, starting next year, they're going to play 9 conference games, and they also have to play at least 1 game against the Power 4 team outside of the conference. Okay, which is in place now. I mean, this year too. So they will only have the potential of having 2 games against teams that are not Power 4 teams after this year in the SEC league. So from that perspective, it will. And excuse me, but again, same could be said. Florida playing USF. Nobody thought that was going to be much of a game before the season, and look what happened. So you just never know. But there were some one-sided games, obviously, and again, those games are played for a lot of different reasons. I'll tell you another game coming up this weekend, though, Georgia, Tennessee. That's going to be
that'll be a great game.
It's going to be a really important game to set the table for both of those teams going forward this year.
Well, we talked about the Miami-South Florida game. Miami is 17.5-point favorite. And that one, the other game I think is going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 6.5 favorite over Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a little bit better team, I think, than what that 6.5 points represents. I may be 100% incorrect, but I think Texas A&M is pretty good as well. I think that could be a very, very interesting game. And, of course, Oklahoma, they're going to be entertaining Texas and, Temple. And we just talked to Billy Wardell about that. Temple won a couple of games that nobody thought they were going to win to start the season. University of South Florida the same way. But I don't think they're going to do that well against Oklahoma. We'll see what happens in that one, Mike.
Yeah, it's that should be a little bit different, but it's great to be in college football now, and in September here, before we know it, we're going to be having a lot of really good games on tap each week to watch. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see who emerges and see who really is the better team this year.
Roger, any games that you want to touch on?
Well, I see Tech, and I see some other teams in the area. Castle State is right about an hour away. And, just in the hotbed right here. I mean, I can make it to Columbia to Clemson in 2 hours. So you see a lot of games. But that was May State that Georgia played on Saturday. But Mike, talking about your alma mater, I'm really impressed with them, and I think so many times it comes up to coaching and getting a team prepared. And you're closer than any of us, and that has to impress you with that team, not only this year, but in the last few years.
Yeah, I think what I see at least, or have seen, I believe, I'm right in this, but he's done a good job of developing this team. Coaches, schools make coaching changes, right, all the time. I mean, if you haven't been fired, you haven't been coaching long enough. And you bring a coach in, and you see this, of course, at the really top level programs more so probably. But you got at most 3 years to be a winner, or you're out the door. Okay, a lot of coaches at the highest levels don't make it through their first contract without being let go, and in some cases, 2 years, maybe only get 2 years. And that's not much time to do anything. And then you add into it the world we live in now with the portal and NILs and players going in and out the door all the time. As you're bringing a new kid in the front door, somebody's going out the back door. So, it's almost an impossible job. What I seem to be seeing at USF is that, Golis came in a couple of years back, and he has been able to actually develop a team. He's got, I think, a number of players who have sort of been there for a few years now. I know the quarterback. I remember watching him as a freshman. He started the last couple, maybe 2 or 3 games of the season, his freshman year, because of other quarterbacks were injured. And they didn't necessarily win all those games, but I think they scored like about 35 to 40 points every game. And I remember looking at him thinking, if they can keep him there, they finally got a quarterback. And now, a few years later, he did stay. And now you're reaping the benefits, like the old days, right? It's like you want to get to that point where these guys you developed all become seniors, and you have a really good, strong senior class that can, take you, where you want to be, kind of thing. And it seems like they've developed that here. He's been able to keep enough players. Obviously, he's got to add other players when he can. But again, they don't have the NIL numbers that these other big schools have. They don't have the athletic budgets these guys have. And somehow he's been able to put together a team and get them to buy into his system and keep some of the better players around, not let them have one good year and then they're out the door to the next best, better job. And now they're sort of all coming together, and they're in a position where if everybody stays healthy, they can put together a heck of a season. And so you got to give him a lot of credit, especially like I said, in these days where a head coach of a Division I college football program or basketball even is a really tough job. With these kids coming and going every month, it seems like.
Mike, one of the teams not real close to your particular area, so I know you don't follow it that closely, but Greg Sciano has been at Rutgers now for quite a few years since they moved into the Big Ten. They were at least competitive last year. They're another school that has had a lot of difficulty being competitive in the Big Ten, obviously. But it's an interesting game this week against Norfolk State because Vic is now coaching his first game in college football. Greg Sciano, who hasn't coached against Vic since he was a defensive coordinator at Miami when Vic was at Virginia Tech. So it's an interesting game to watch. First of all, from Vic's standpoint, as a new coach in college football, and Greg Schiano is trying to take his record at 3-0 for the 25 season.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting dynamic. It'll be interesting, fun to see how Vic does, and in this new endeavor. And Schiano has a lot of experience in both college and of course he's with the Bucs for a while. So it's going to be interesting to see, that's going to be an interesting game to sort of see the direction of both of those teams.
Roger?
What's interesting about Michael Vick at Norfolk State, they play or are going to play Delaware State, and Deshaun Jackson is coaching there. I think two guys that played with each other on the Philadelphia Eagles, so that's interesting. And I love matchups like that. And but I'll tell you, Mike, I'm impressed with some of the teams that do not get notoriety, and to watch them on Saturday and you flip the dial, and I'm just generalizing because I've seen so many, because there's so many games on now, with the SEC network, the Big Ten network, and then you also have CW has games. It's amazing. And you can really get an overkill, in college basketball sometimes. But if you love it, give me more.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the great things about college football right now is you got games a lot of times on Thursdays, you got games on Fridays, you got I watch games on Saturday from noon to midnight at least, and multiple games at a time that you can watch. I mean, it's a college football fan's dream to be able to get that much. I mean, by the time I get to Sunday, I hardly watch any NFL games because I've sort of had my fill. It's like eating turkey dinner. It's like on Thanksgiving. It's like by Friday you're not even hungry.
Well, I got to tell you, Mike, I got to go along with it because it's really been the last few years. I can't say it's just this year. I just you just get your fill. I mean, I can't watch NFL game after NFL game because it has some kind of meaning to me to watch it, and otherwise it's just a game. And so I agree with you. I think they wear you out.
Yeah, well, in a good way. But yeah, no, I love watching all the different teams and the games, and I love. And there's something about college. I know it's big business like everything else these days, and there's money now floating around every direction.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's still the universities, the fan structure, the loyalty of the fans, the camaraderie, and and personally, I just love the heck out of the fact that you have a big win and they rush the field. I mean, there's nothing like that. I don't care. These conferences, they fine them and stuff. And it's like, they're like, you can fine us all you want. We're doing it, It's like, and it's just, you think about these games, the whiteouts at Penn State, the weather. I mean, so you just don't have that in the NFL. I'm sorry. And, NFL it's like the NBA. The NBA has some great players, unbelievable, talented athletes, but I'll watch college basketball or NBA any day. And the same thing with my personal life. I just love the college football game, more so than the NFL. NFL's great, like you said, to see the talent, the things they can do, and so it's like watching the Olympics. It's like oh my gosh, I can't believe they can do that. But as far as like the teams and rooting for the teams and that whole aspect around it and college game day and all that environment around the game itself and the pageantry around it, the traditions and the rivalries, you just can't beat it. And I just can't get enough of it.
Mike, I know Roger asked this question a few weeks back when you first came on about the Lacrosse Bowl and when you start to looking at teams and all, but now with the new selections designations the way they are now, how much really scouting do you do? How much do you go out and look at teams, or is that part of the past now, and it's just all part of the selection, and then you have your choices of Big Ten and whatever it may be?
We don't really scout that much anymore. We'll have some people that just go to some games, just the ambassadors kind of thing for the bowl.
Right.
But I think more than anything, you're at this time of year, especially, you're sitting there looking at teams, and like I've said before, you're sitting there trying to figure out, what teams, especially, with the portal now and the off season, never really knowing exactly what teams are going to be good coming into the year, if the team really improved or not improved or whatever. And so, the first month of the season, you're trying to get a feel as to, what teams, how good are certain teams, right? And such. And then you get into October and you're saying, okay, these are some potential teams that we might have a shot at getting that will be, potential schools that we will have an option to potentially choose from. And then you get in November and, it really starts narrowing down and you're saying, okay, these are the few teams that we think from each conference that might be there for us at the end to choose from. And, so you're just really just sort of looking at that and really just enjoying the season as it progresses along. And, of course, once you get to the very end, then you'll have an idea, okay, here's the teams that are available, and then we go through the selection process and that type of thing. So, not a lot of good scouting like it used to be. When I first started with the bowl games, there were only 14 bowl games. There were no conference tie-ins other than, I think, the Big Ten and like Rose Bowl and a couple, and maybe Big 8 at the time, and then the Orange Bowl. But you literally had to go out and, travel around the country and convince ADs and coaches to come play in your bowl game.
Right.
It was like, you really had to go out and find somebody, like you're trying to go out and find a prom date, You had to ask a few people sometimes. But, well, you guys probably didn't, but I did. But at any rate, now it's just, you have the conference agreement. So.
Hey, Mikey, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Frank. How are you?
Good. I'll put you right in.
See, two great conferences, two conferences I keep adding teams. And so we're always going to have quite a few good selections. And then we get to that point and they say, okay, it's your turn, who you want. And then by that point, we've sort of understood, who we think the best teams will be to produce the best matchup that will bring a lot of fans and excitement and energy to the community, and put together, put on a great show for TV and all of our sponsors. So that's sort of how we do it.
Roger?
Yeah, a couple of things, Mike. I've been a member of the National Football Foundation for many, many years, and involved the Delaware Valley chapter and the Atlanta chapter, which is now part of the Touchdown Club of Atlanta. So I'm not really involved anymore. But Gary Stoken, who has been running the Peach Bowl, Chick-fil-A Bowl for many years,
about 20 years, yeah.
Yeah, was recently honored by the Football Foundation. And I know Archie Manning's the chairman of the board. It's really a great organization that has really a lot of tremendous CEOs and football people have been members and active for many years. And but talking about a bowl, I can remember being at the Garden State Bowl many years ago, and Temple played and beat California. And let me tell you, there weren't that many bowl games in those days. And that was a pretty big game. I can tell you that, and Wayne Harden was the coach and did a great job and had some really great ball players on it. And we were talking about Temple earlier, not only with you, but with Bill Warrendale. And he was talking about the coach at Temple who's really paid his dues. He was at Delaware, Sam Houston State, Rowan, and he's at Temple. And Billy feels that way he will make the difference in bringing Temple back. So you just never know, but you really have to give credit to a guy like Casey Keeler, who has left some pretty good schools in pretty cushy situations to take on a situation like that. Just like I have a lot of respect for Bill O'Brien on what he did going into Penn State after all the problems.
Yeah, I should have asked Billy when I had him on that. Who was the one that scouted? Who was the one that made the decision for the president? Because it was a new president coming into Temple University as of the spring, and they were on the fences of what they were going to do about football. And who was the one that really was the one that was the motivating force to get the right person at the right time in the right place?
Yeah.
Hey, Don.
Football.
Don, we have Mike Zimsack ready to go.
Okay. Mike, I want to thank you very much as always. A lot of great college football coming up this weekend as we've had. A little bit on the short side for big games, but there'll be some that'll be really, very interesting. And we'll do it again next week and find out what's happening on your front.
That sounds good, guys. So I appreciate it. Always great talking to you, Mike. Always great, guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Have a great week, and get your TVs warmed up.
Okay, Mike, thank you so much. Mike Zimsack, our soccer expert down the ball in the Washington area. But before we get to that, Mike, it looks like your young quarterback is not going to go through any sophomore jinx in the first game of the 25 season. Washington got off flying.
But actually, to do a little bit better on offense, James Daniels had a couple of miscues, missing Gary Terry, a couple of balls from behind receivers. It was not his most accurate game, but he definitely able to get it done with his legs. And I wondered where the profession was going to be to out Brian Robinson, the junior, and actually looked pretty good. No cross it looked like he could actually be a running back. So, yeah, but I think the overall period how the out Toro for the first Thursday night ball game.
That's better. That's better, Mike. Hold on, because we're fading out a little bit. Okay, go ahead, Frank.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
tune him up a little bit.
We have. He's
they're overall a little bit happy with the way things turned out. They got a short week. They're up in Lambeau tomorrow night, a Thursday night football, and they're going to try to cut their first win in Lambeau Field since 1988.
Roger?
Mike, we'll stay with football, and then we'll get to soccer because we have that the subject right now. I wanted to ask you let's hear the latest on the future stadium in our nation's
right now, where we were a couple of weeks ago, which is almost there, the final approval getting taken care of, and everything looks to be tracked right ground. They got to finish clearing out the RK site, and so we're in we're in that situation where I think in this case, no news is good news. Everything looks to be settled, and we're going to get a new stadium hopefully in the next 5 years.
Well, Mike, let me ask you this question because ABC tonight in New York, Channel 7, did a big feature on the World Cup coming in next year. And I don't exactly understand. You don't really buy tickets. You buy a position to buy tickets, and then you pay. But the price scale up and down for the whole package is in different places and different venues. The price is really. You don't just go out and buy yourself. Well, look, I want to see two games in Met Stadium, or I want to see whatever. I don't understand how they structure these tickets because some of them are really astronomically high.
they tried to keep ticket sales at price points so that they have tickets available at various price points. Clearly, your more expensive packages are going to be more for corporate buyers. They'll have a large allotment for sponsors, but you have to enter the lottery. They'll let you know the tickets that you can buy, and then you can look at the venues and teams. They try to keep it so that there is no secondary market for World Cup tickets, because that's when you're really going to start to see price gouging.
Right.
Is when if tickets get to a secondary market, essentially for like USA games or things like that.
Right.
So they want to make sure that as many people as want access can get access. A friend of mine was over at the World Cup in Qatar, and he said that they do have like an internal FIFA app that will let you exchange tickets, but don't expect to see, or at least you shouldn't expect to see, World Cup tickets on like above the SeatGeek. That's how this is supposed to work.
Roger, you know, I'll tell you, Mike, you see that all the time. A couple of years ago, after the Braves won the World Series, they had their, I think the first game they had it for a replica of their World Series ring. You know, and that was a new phenomenon, I mean, with the real models of the big rings. And what happened is that one of the secondary markets bought pretty much all of the tickets soon as the promotion list came out on the schedule. And a friend of mine, RG, who Don and Frank know, we both were ready to go to the game. And we were ready to pay $100 for a ticket to go at Truist Park. And it was because you could not buy any from Braves.com. You could buy tickets, but not through the Braves. And it was, one of these secondary markets, and $220 for one of the cheaper tickets. So we obviously passed on it, and but that's what I have seen. And there's been many events where you went into the lottery to get in line for tickets, not only for World Cup, but I mean different events. I think the Super Bowl has had lotteries for tickets, and so that doesn't surprise me at all. But I did want to ask you a couple of questions.
Roger on that. But the one reason that they don't want to sell tickets, why they don't secondary market is people will map the stadium set with sections for one national team's fans, and they'll probably be on the opposite side of the stadium from the other national team's fans, and then they'll have separate sections for what they call neutral fans. To the extent possible, they want to keep opposing fans apart as much as possible, because that's when you start to get problems. Like we had over the summer last year when the York Lion family and friends were stuck in the section with Columbia, the hardcore Colombian supporters, and there were issues of potential violence and threats and stuff. They want to keep some of these fans as far away from each other as possible to minimize threats. So that's why they don't allow secondary markets to buy them. That's why you just can't buy any ticket. That's why they try and keep you from being able to sell the tickets to StubHub or SeatGeek, Ticketmaster, because Ticketmaster and StubHub and SeatGeek, the secondary market aren't for pay attention to who they sell tickets for, where they sell them.
They can control it. And I mentioned earlier that Tim McDermott is president of the union. And, of course, that's the brother of Sean McDermott. And Tim was in marketing and had a pretty big job with the Eagles at one time. So he's done a great job with the union. in many ways.
They're right now with everybody. There's a bit of an international break. There's some breaks for teams to make up games from this from cup competitions. Right now, with everybody pretty much closer on 29 games. The Philadelphia Union have 59 points, leading the league. They've got a 3-point cushion over San Diego for the Supporters Shield for top record in the league. They have a really tough couple of days ahead of them. Saturday, they're flying out to Vancouver to play the Whitecaps, which is probably their toughest remaining game on the schedule in Vancouver against the Whitecaps, who were the top team in the West for a lot of this season. Their results have tailed off a little bit. San Diego has third, and they slipped down the second, but they're still a very, very tough, very, very dangerous team, and one that you can see should the Union advance to the MLS Cup, that could be among the teams that you could foresee them playing. After they fly back from they have a game in Nashville, so they have to turn around and fly out to Nashville for their U.S. Cup semifinal on Tuesday. So right now, the Union are the first team in the Eastern Conference to clinch a playoff spot. They're at the top of the Supporters Shield. They're in MLS Cup playoffs, and they're in the semifinal of the U.S. Open Cup, which means that they're in a good position to pick up some form of silverware this season, which would be only their second trophy in team history.
Mike, back to the World Cup for just a second. I'm waiting for the papers tomorrow when I get a little bit more of a idea of where these cities are. How do you know what teams are playing in what city and what the price structure is going to be? For instance, St. Louis or LA or Florida or whatever, as opposed to being in New York or being, wherever. How do you know what the price is, and how do you know whether your team's going to play in that city?
Well, you're not going to know where the teams are going to be played, where the games are going to be played, and where the teams are going to be set up until the official draw is made, which is then when they'll match up teams, stadiums, markets.
Okay.
This has been kind of an interesting one because geographically, it's probably being played. It is being played over the widest area that we've ever seen a World Cup played. Russia would have been the one up until now, but we're going all the way from Canada down to Mexico,
Right.
from New Jersey out to California. There's a lot of area to cover. It's not just the United States that we're looking at. You have you could be a fan of a team that ends up with their games being up in Canada. Now, what they have said is that the teams that they're going to try and keep the teams in a reasonable geographic area, so that you're not flying from like Vancouver to Miami and then back to Seattle or Northern California. They have to do something to keep these games in some reasonable travel time for the fans and the athletes especially. So we won't really know until the draw is made. They said one thing that we do know is that Canada are going to play all of their initial groups.
Yes, sir.
Hey, what's going on?
Not much. How about yourself?
Yeah, same stuff.
Good. Good. How's the team doing?
So we've played 2 games. We're 2-0.
Good.
We won the first game 28-0.
Nice.
We won the second game 30-0.
Nice.
And the second game, the guy who coached against me, I remembered him from rec basketball. He coached a rec basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered in that game, like it was a pretty rough game, like a lot of fouls called on. His guys were very physical. His kids were very physical with mine. And in the football game, I want to say at least 2 plays on our first drive, his team got called roughing the passer.
Mm.
And then 2 additional times it happened. And then 1 additional time, one of their kids like flat out tackled my kid.
Mm-hmm.
and they were touching my kids and roughing the kids the whole entire game. So I was very happy to beat that guy's ass 30-0. And usually what happens when you it's a mercy rule once you are up 28 points. Right. And we had about a half an hour left that we could have continued to play. Mm-hmm. And the referee came over, and the coach was deaf, so he had a translator. Mm-hmm. And this lady looked directly at me and really short and curt. She's like, "We won't be participating in the scrimmage." And then she just kind of walked away. I didn't say anything, but I mean, my response would have been like, we're not going to gain anything from scrimmage, you guys anyway. Right. Getting hurt. Getting hurt. You know what I mean? Like, sure. I wanted to get off the field because I didn't want any of my kids to get hurt. Right. And literally, we were winning 24-0 at the end of the first half. Mm-hmm. And there was like 30 seconds left in the first half. And it was our ball. I called timeout. And I wanted to run one more play, and I ran an all-go just to hopefully throw it up over top of the defense so that we could win and just win by halftime. Yeah. So, I mean, I just wanted to get off the field because probably second or third best player is the one that got tackled, and he had to sit for a little bit, and he couldn't play defense anymore. So I was kind of like, I don't know. This guy's obviously teaching this to his kids, so I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not interested in condoning it. So I sent an email to the league commissioner and told him what happened. And his basic response to me was, "We'll keep an eye on him." and the other thing, Frank, is when the game started, he said, "This is non-contact." The referee came out. We were all standing out at midfield for the coin toss, and he said, "We want no contact, and we want good sportsmanship. We want you guys, when you pull flags, to give the flags back to the person." Mm-hmm. Now, one kid on their team gave a flag back to my kid. They pulled the flag and they threw it on the ground. Mm. So, just bush league stuff. Yeah. And, it's just, you don't play that way. And so, like I said, I was happy to beat his ass 30-0.
Good. I'm going to put you in I'll put you in. Sounds good.
Really large stadium by Kansas City. So they commit to have games out Kansas City. So there's going to be a bit of travel, but I don't think that they can expect teams to like you said, like I said, I think we all agree, it's not going to make for a great tournament if you've got people flying from Vancouver to Miami down to southern Mexico.
Yeah, plus the fact they've got to get from whichever country they're going to be coming from, they got to get to where their stationary home is going to be momentarily, and then go from there. So it's going to be a round circle for them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of visa requirements and things like that you got to play into. So, I am certain that teams that play in one country are going to stay in that country. So if your games are in the Mexico pod, right? In Mexico, and you get the pod, I believe those are the only teams that are going to play their games in those locations. And that is, the rest of them will be in the U.S. It is going to be it's the first time that they've expanded the World Cup to 48 teams. So we've got a bigger World Cup, more games, a great bigger geographical area than we've ever seen for a World Cup. It's definitely going to be an interesting tournament, both in terms of the play on the field and just the logistics of moving all of these people and teams around these three countries.
Roger?
Hey, Don.
Well,
Don, we're joined by Doug.
Okay.
So he can put his 2 cents in on this.
Okay.
You guys go on about yourself with soccer. I know nothing about soccer.
No worries. I just wanted to say what you were saying, Mike, about the stadiums. Like, Kansas City, I don't think the University of Missouri is too far away. And then, of course, you always got the old TWA dome in St. Louis, where they made a lot of improvements, and yet the Rams built football. And just thoughts on stadiums out in that area.
They pretty much narrowed down stadiums are. I was in bid that they put on. We know where the games are going to be played. I know they're going to be how be games in Houston. That's how I know that there are going to be games in Kansas City, and I know that there are not going to be games in Houston ball. We know where they will be. We just don't know when and who's going to be playing. For one of these cities, I have to get a proposal for a stadium that holds a minimum number of people, locations for 2 fan zones, and at least 3 these considered to be world-class training facilities in the local area.
Okay.
Well, Mike Zimzak, we'll leave it right there. We'll get Doug over here because we had a big game over the weekend. The Ravens got the season started.
I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure, my boy. Doug, I know you had a tough start with the Orioles for the season. You had another tough start this weekend for the Ravens. What happened?
Well, I mean,
Almost 1,000 yards. One team was 496, and the other was 493.
Yeah.
Almost 1,000 yards between the two teams. Total offense. Holy smoke!
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of defense being played in that football game. I think it was initially. I think Buffalo runs down and scores a touchdown, and of course, they're in Buffalo and blah blah blah. But it was really nice to see the Ravens kind of come back, and Derrick Henry is still, really really good. If you didn't know, last season how well he played, he also got a really good start this season. But the Lamar Jackson is doing very flashy. I mean, he didn't throw for 130 yards, but I mean, he navigated the offense, in and out and up and down, and it was fun to watch. There's a lot of weapons on that Baltimore team in terms of Zay Flowers was really good. Bateman's certainly gotten a lot better. Mark Andrews is pretty steady. He's been a all-pro tight end in his tenure. Derrick Henry caught a pass out of the backfield. There was a lot to be excited about, I think, as a Ravens football fan. Just too many, penalties. We missed an extra point. Obviously, the Derrick Henry fumble was one of the game changers there. Josh Allen's just a tough quarterback. I mean, he sits back in the pocket and he'll throw the football, obviously, with good velocity. And, he likes to get out of the side of the pocket. He likes to run. James Cook is a very good running back. So it was, up and down the field, as you mentioned, with lots of offense, not a lot of defense. We started this way last year in terms of struggling to find our way defensively. And so I'm curious to see kind of how that gets itself. I mean, I think that the Baltimore Ravens offense has the capacity to score, north of, 25, 30, 35 points on a regular basis. So, we'll just see how it plays out. I mean, I think it's week 1 of the NFL football season. I think, we watched, if you watched any football, I mean, Washington didn't exactly look, splendid against a not so good Giants team. The Jets and Steelers was a high-scoring affair, which typically the Steelers don't give up that many points. The Detroit Lions did not look very good. The Chiefs did not win. So there's a lot of things that you look at during the season here, and it's just getting started. I mean, obviously, injuries play a factor, and weather plays a factor in that. But if you're looking at Baltimore's schedule, boy, they have a tough one. They start with Buffalo on the road. We've got Cleveland this week, but in return, you'll see us play in Lambeau. We play against the Lions, the Bengals twice, Steelers twice, the Browns twice. That's pretty daggone. The Chiefs, I think, are on that schedule. It's a real tough schedule, so we're going to have to play some better football.
Roger. Well, I'll tell you, Josh Allen, I can see why he's the MVP in the league, Doug.
Well, I look, I know we're on the air, but that's bullshit. Josh Allen was not the MVP last year.
He was. He was
not even close. It wasn't even close. Lamar Jackson accounted for way more. I mean, I think the Warriors just felt sorry. They wanted to give it to Josh Allen because they didn't want Lamar to have it for the third time. It's ridiculous. I mean, it wasn't even close. They were talking about that pregame, they were talking about that in-game. And if you look at the stats from last year, it's not even close. So,
well, in my opinion, he's the MVP. He got the award, and he won the game. And last year he won the game, and that's what it's all about. Jalen Hurts won the game, and then he was the MVP.
yeah.
And that's what I look at. Hey, listen, I agree with you. I'm not saying that it's everything's fair in life. It's not. Okay. But what he showed me, and the same thing happened. I mentioned at the top of the show. I thought that the Vikings Bears game was over. I turned over and went to sleep. And the next day I find out what they scored 16 points. In a short period of time.
The Vikings looked awful in the first half. McCarthy was terrible the first half.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the Bears look great.
Yep. I mean, I don't know. I guess I have I'm not sure what the word I would use is, but like when you talk about concepts of, whether it's sports writers or whatever, that get the vote for the Hall of Fame, or they get the vote for the MVP, or, I mean, those things are so skewed. You have a bunch of pocket protector birds that don't know the games, never played them, and they base their vote on what? Like, if you let guys last year, you looked at when Lamar Jackson had 915 yards rushing, almost 5,000 yards, he had 45 touchdowns. I think he accounted for it. He threw 4 interceptions. Like, I don't know how you could have a better season than that. I mean, and if you're going to base that and you're going to sit there and say, okay, well, Josh Allen beat him in the playoff game. Okay, well, we went through Heine in the first game. Like, did that count for anything? No, because it's not playoffs, right? So, you can make an argument either way for whomever you want to win that, but based on solely the numbers, it wasn't even close.
Well, Doug, in the first half hour of the show, we talked a little bit about it, which I thought was an interesting point that you follow so much more closely. The place the lights get decided by the Ravens coming down the whole stretch. Why Henry would be used as runner? I mean, Jackson almost single-handedly could. Why wasn't he carrying the ball? Why didn't he roam with the ball and try to win the game?
Yeah. Yeah,
I haven't seen the ball on paper, so I don't know what they had to say about that. Whether they challenged the play calling there, or whether they decided it was just a mistake. We had a fumble, and that's what happened.
Well, I mean, if you remember back to Baltimore losing to the Kansas City Chiefs, in the playoffs, 2 years ago, I think there was a big deal about why weren't we running the football. Because that's our identity, and I think that's obviously one of the reasons they went out and got Derrick Henry in terms of trying to put the closer in there and say, hey, let's let him run over people and 5.5 yards of carry and we'll win this game. It just Derrick Henry's not a fumbler. Like it just happened. Like last year, Mark Andrews, pretty sure-handed guy, doesn't normally drop those kind of passes, doesn't normally fumble. It happened. You know what I mean? Like. These hiccups keep happening at the wrong time. And
right.
In terms of what I'm hearing in Baltimore, I think more people are upset that John Harbaugh in his career has given up 17 double-digit late leads. I think that's the bigger of the numbers that we're talking about here that suggests, we're, at one point in time when I was watching the game, it was 27-13. Like we were rolling. The Buffalo Bills had no answer whatsoever for anything we did on offense. And then all of a sudden, we just had to score, we missed an extra point, and then we just started giving up yards, and we had penalties, and then, like a fumble, and then one thing after another, about producing the stagnant games.
Yeah, I agree with Roger. I mean, when you're looking at it in the fourth quarter and say, hey, this game's over. This game is history. Yeah. The Ravens are going home and win and playing in Buffalo and win the game. Roger, you're up.
Yeah, well, I talked about this. After the game, getting back to that, in that run that Jackson had, wasn't that like 60 yards early in the game?
Yeah.
And, why he would run. I mean, Derrick Henry gets beat up so good that sooner or later something's got to give.
Yeah.
But that run that Jackson had when he was going to be tackled in the back and sacked for a big loss, and he got 3, and they're going. We were talking about the, what was it, Chris Collinsworth and Mike Barreto were talking about the way he got 3. I think it was the Sunday night game, right? On NBC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who knows? I mean, John Harbaugh's a winning coach, and you can't complain about him.
I think Todd Monken's really good at what he does in terms of scheming offenses and plays and putting the right people in the right places and calling the right plays. It just watching the game as a Baltimore Ravens fan, I would echo Don's statement saying I think there were various points in that game in the second half where I'm like, this game is flat out over. Like, we are going to continue scoring the football, and it doesn't matter what happens after that. Right. No clue. I mean, I think that was kind of the preview going into the game. That Buffalo had a banged up secondary, and they were going to have a struggle bus to cover some of our receivers. But in reverse, I mean, Derrick Henry was rolling. Like, he was just busting chops through there, and was a really, really good carrying the football. Zay Flowers is just a very dynamic football player that I don't think, obviously at a young age gets enough credit. When you start talking about the diva receivers there are around the league, and your Jeffersons and Chases and some St. Browns and Nakuas and CeeDee Lambs and all those guys are your upper echelon kind of guys. But Zay Flowers is a very talented wide receiver, very talented.
Just a quick note, the Red Sox have lost tonight 5-4, so they're not going to make any progress against the Yankees. The Yankees are on prime, so I can't see that game tonight, so I don't know what the score of the Yankee game is, but I know the Red Sox have already lost. Yeah. And I also don't know what Toronto was on so fortunate.
So
the Phillies are up over the Mets 8-1.
I do, however, want to tell you, we attended the Baltimore Oriole game on was that Saturday night where playing the Dodgers. They hit 8 2/3 innings, and then they came back and won the game. That was one of the most unbelievable games you could ever imagine watching. And I can tell you, still as an Oriole fan, the whole 21-31 pregame stuff that throughout the game was very well done, commemorating Cal Ripken's 30th anniversary of breaking that record.
Right.
But, you're also talking about, the Orioles went out to San Diego or played San Diego rather and swept them 3 games. They come home, San Diego has a walk-off home run in the first game, and then they're getting no hit 8 2/3 and come out and win the game. And I can tell you, sitting around a lot of these the stadium had an awful lot of white and blue. There were an awful lot of Dodger fans. And there was a group of people sitting in and around me and my son. We were watching the game. And they're very smug about, obviously they like their team. They want to win, blah, blah, blah. And I struck up a conversation with this guy behind me who was actually a really nice guy. He's from Pennsylvania. And we were talking about, the game, the Dodgers and everything else. And I said, you guys are pretty excited about, the Dodgers and the fact that they're winning and the guys throwing it out here. I said, I understand that. I was like, but you guys also have to understand you have a gazillion-dollar payroll when you're playing against the Orioles. Like, you spent like $1 billion last year in the off season, and you're happy that you're winning 2-0. You know what I mean? Like, what am I missing? You know what I mean? Like, what would you do? And, so it was really, really great to see the Orioles come back and win that game after basically being down to the last out, last strike almost.
Right.
So great win for them. I mean, probably the signature win of their season, obviously in the midst of a down year. But to take 5 out of 6 games from the Dodgers and the Padres is pretty cool.
Before we run out of time, we are getting closer and closer to one of the biggest weekends in golf, if not the biggest weekend in golf. And some of your thoughts now as we get set to go to New York and play on one of the toughest golf courses in America.
Really, really hard. I mean, I told you guys I remember playing a video game, a Tiger Woods golf video game, which I was actually really good at. And I remember playing with that game black, and it was also difficult on a video game. And so it's an incredibly challenging golf course. I'm sure they'll have it greased up nicely for the event in terms of the greens and speed. And, obviously I don't know if weather's going to play a factor in it or not, but this is one of the most amazing and exciting golf events, that I enjoy watching international competition. There's so much moxie between both sides in terms of how hard they root for their teams and how much this means to all the players and how big of an accomplishment it is for some of these first timers. What JJ Spawn and guys like that get an opportunity to play for their country. And it'll be so interesting to see. And I don't know, Don, maybe you know that if the pairings have been leaked or if they have made them, or I'm not sure what happens here in terms of who plays whom. But the most fun part is obviously the singles matches and how they stack up. And obviously we hope that either we're far enough ahead at that point or enjoying enough of the lead that most of those matches don't matter. But obviously in the spirit of the game, if it comes down to it, then by golly, then we'll just have a nail biter.
Well, I think it's going to be a nail biter. I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's going to be a call. I think it's going to be the European. And I'll tell you, Bradley was it was funny. He's at the tournament this weekend and not playing. He said it's the first time that he's been in the PGA tournament. In fact, most of his team were there using it as a warm up for next week. And he said it's the first time since I was 16 years old that I've been in a PGA tournament that I wasn't playing.
Yeah.
Right.
Tick, tick, tock. Tick, tick, tock.
Got it.
Well, we're out of time. Well, we'll have a chance next weekend to talk about it. It'll all be getting underway the next day. And once again, always a pleasure. Our PGA professional down in Baltimore, Maryland. And Doug, thank you so very, very much. You're another good show. Frank, good going.
Hey, Don.
Talk to you guys all next week.
Don, before we leave, let's laud our professional. He's also the head coach of a football team that's now 2-0.
All right. Hey, we're all
That's right.
I tell you what, you can't commute up here, Frank. I can truly use a good assistant. So I can call plays on offense to get these kids in the right spots, but the defensive side of it is a struggle bus for me.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, these programs are brought to you each and every night of the week in grateful appreciation to the men and women of the United States Armed Forces, men and women police and fire services. When you're out there and you see someone in uniform, please let them know that you know they're there. These are very, very tough times for men and women in uniform, both domestic and foreign. These programs are dedicated to those who lost their lives in line of duty. Deputy Robert Anthony Carroll, Patrolman David Curtis, Patrolman Jeffrey Colcap, Patrolman Jeffrey Yazwitz, Sergeant Thomas Batinger, San Diego Officer Mike Hendler, Sergeant Tom Wilson, Charlotte County Sheriff's Department, Detective Randy Bell, Detective Ricky Childers, Patrolman Charlie Kahn at Tarpon Springs Police Department, Deputy Chief Mike Godwin, Philadelphia Fire Department, Lieutenant Joyce Craig Lewis, Philadelphia Fire Department, Sergeant James O'Connor, Philadelphia Police Department, Sergeant Chris LeVate, Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department, Lieutenant Mike Zerba, Newcastle County Police, Patrolman Anafa Crispin, Lakeland PD, Deputy Josh Meyer, Nassau County Sheriff's Department, Captain Matt Laterno, Philadelphia Fire Department, Captain Chris Leach, Wilmington Fire Department, Lieutenant Ardith Hope, Wilmington Fire Department, Lieutenant Jerry Ficus, Wilmington Fire Department, Chief Jimmy Ford, Wilmington Fire Department, Chief Al Hogo, Long Bouquet Police Department, Deputy Mike Hargrove, Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, Trooper Chelsea Richards, Florida Highway Patrol, Trooper Joe Bullock, Florida Highway Patrol, Trooper Zachary Ben, Florida Highway Patrol, Sergeant Chris Fitzgerald, Philadelphia Police Department, Sergeant Sergeant Ramon Mendez, Philadelphia Police Department, Chief Corey Compantier, Buffalo Creek Fire Department, Deputy Ronnie Ronmaneski, Manatee County Sheriff's Department. My brothers and sisters, though you may be 10-7 at this point in time, at some time we'll be 10-10 at the table of the Lord. Until that time, may the rose rise up to meet you. May the winds be always at your back. May the rain fall softly on your fields and the sun shine lightly on your face. Until we meet again, may the good Lord keep you and your family always in the palm of his hands. Good night, God bless, and have a great week.